Good morning to everybody from Paphos Museum. I'm in the Paphos Museum together with our colleague Claire Balondier, who is the next speaker. And I would like also to thank the organizers for this invitation to participate in this important conference. So the final decades of the 4th century and early 3rd century BC were a time of decisive change everywhere on the island, but no other region was affected by this historical process as much as Paphos. The changes concern not only the political status of the local kingdom, but also the urban development of the city. The foundation of Nea Paphos after the conquest of the island by the Macedonians marks a turning point in the historical development of the old capital of the Paphian kingdom, which henceforth is referred to in written sources as Palea, the old city. However, the written sources are not explicit regarding the sequence of events, and it's therefore up to archaeology to clarify the situation. Palaepaphos was the main political and economic center in Western Cyprus from the Bronze Age onwards, with unprecedented prosperity during the Cypriote period. The city expands considerably in the Cypriarchaic period, but the invasion of Persians after the revolt of the Cypriotes stops the prosperity of that time. Building activity in the latter part of the Cyproclassical period was a sign of recovery of the city. In the early Hellenistic period, the residential quarters in the east and south show signs of abandonment, and the city shifts closer to the sanctuary. The old Paphos would have lost many of its inhabitants and shrunk to a small sanctuary town. The arguments for this point of view regarding the evolution of the city are the absence of important Hellenistic buildings and the evidence from cemeteries, which together do not support the idea of an important settlement existed in the area. Extensive research in the region provides new data on later periods, making the above viewpoint oversimplified. A massive building, I'm going quickly for that, a massive building of Hellenistic date is coming to light in Kouklia, main square in the center of the village, while other installations of the same period emerge from the earth at Achni Bay, related to a harbor, a site in danger because of the development plans for the area. To Yeroskipu, also a site in danger. The site of Yeroskipu was seen from Google Earth. In short, information of the Hellenistic period from the wider area is becoming quite significant, pointing towards a densely populated region with important economic activity, a vital region for the Ptolemaic regime. Palaepaphos was not granted the status of polis, neither is a new settlement known from any source to have been founded at the location, as in the case of Marion of Sinoi. It is part of the whole of Paphos, and it is hard to believe that it was reduced to a village. The topic is vast, and I do not intend to comment on it. I'm going to give nuance to the image with the presentation of new evidence from the city's necropolis. The classical period seems to have been regarded as a difficult period compared to previous times, as few tombs of that time are recorded, especially in the 5th century. The number increases in late classical period in the 4th century, something which possibly reflects the recovery of the city and the resumption of trade with the Greek world. The city lacks an exclusively classical necropolis, and the old cemeteries seem to have been used continuously. Classical tombs have been recorded recently inside the old necropolis of Skales, Katoalonia, Lyomilia, Hassan, Lakos to Skarno, Lakos to Skarno. It means everywhere on all ancient necropolis, all the necropolis of the geometric period. The monumental tombs at Archaeological and Katoalonia you see are also of classical date. They present a special style of funerary architecture destined for the upper classes, but it is hard to establish a precise chronology. An important change in the topography of Palaepaphos is marked by the establishment in the late classical or early Hellenistic period, it means the end of 4th century, 3rd century BC, of a new necropolis to the west and south to the hill of the sanctuary. Up to now, no tomb prior to this date has been recorded at that place. The discoveries provide valuable information on the city's development at the time of the founding of Nea Paphos. The location is known as phones. It means funnels in Cypriot dialect, referring to open tombs. Tombs of the same period have also been excavated further to the south in the locality Alonia. The burial ground covers quite a large area, disproportionate to a settlement in decline, 20 tombs only in accidental discoveries. The area was targeted by the Cyprus Exploration Fund in the late 19th century, where many tombs of the so-called later tombs were discovered. Today, the area is divided into housing plots and already partly covered with buildings. The site dominates the access of the village of Kouklia in the same way that it would have dominated the access to the ancient city via a road crossing the necropolis. The discoveries in the area demonstrate new burial practices and customs never attested to before in Palaepaphos. During our investigations, we came upon built funerary monuments that occupied the hill slope and that were erected among the tombs. Two of them have been excavated, but are unfortunately in bad condition because of the friable bedrock which brought about the collapse of the earth, but it is mainly due to mechanical intervention during the leveling operations to build. The most important monument is a 5-step structure which is built with dry lake-hewn limestone blocks surrounding a core made of earth and rough stones. A step base is thus formed, measuring approximately 4 to 3 meters with a height preserved of about 1 meter. The steps are on the 3 sides, the structure being built against the bedrock. The blocks of the top layer are finely carved, something which suggests that it could indeed be the base of a funerary naiskos, an altar, or for a statue. It also could have been supported a flat platform, a krypidoma, where the epistemata would take place, stele or other monuments related to nearby buried persons. Excavation inside the core and underneath the structure has revealed that it did not contain a burial, nor was it built over a tomb. It was a freestanding funerary monument. Excavation around the structure yielded fragments of vases and alabastra, which could have served in burial ceremonies. To the left of the stepped construction, as you see, a pedimental funerary stele was discovered in good state of preservation. The stele was found standing in an almost upright position, lacking a base, carved in hard limestone. It is topped with a framed pediment and 3 acroteria. It is interesting to know that the stele still preserves traces of red color on its main surface, suggesting on the stone something that looks like a tight ribbon with floating ends. It's not easy to see, it needs a special photography to reveal this. Pottery of the early Hellenistic period was found this is the stele. Pottery of the early Hellenistic period was found in front of the stele on the steps of the funerary monument, something which approximately dates the structure in the early Hellenistic period to a very late 4th or 3rd century. In the same area, a large fragment of a finely carved limestone funerary stele was discovered. Although it is only the right part of the naiskos type stele, it still preserves painted decoration in red, green, and blue. The colors have largely vanished from the surface of the stone, but the design of elegant Ionic chymatia can still be seen on the entablement. The type of simple rectangular pedimental stele, or the stele of the naiskos type, is extremely common in Greek world in the late Classical and Hellenistic periods, and it's difficult to find parallels. However, Greek funerary stele in Palaepaphos are unique. Something that is also new in Palaepaphos, it is the painted decoration, which I will comment on later. Burial customs attest inhumation in sharp graves, and in one case, the remains of a cremation were found inside an amphora, finely adorned with polychrome decoration on a white ground. A silver coin was found in another grave, unfortunately much worn and not legible. It was found among the cranial bones, a testament to the practice of the custom known in the Greek world as endowing the deceased with the fees for their passage to underworld, the Charonios of Olos. Tomb offerings are badly preserved. Some small vessels are only better preserved. A second structure was excavated at a short distance from the previous one to the northwest and higher up to the hill slope. This is the base of another funerary monument, but it was very much more destroyed. 3 courses of carved stones seem to have been preserved, the third made of finely carved stones, demonstrating architecture of certain quality. The area around the structures have yielded various stone objects which would have served a purpose during funeral ceremonies and the cult of the dead, in accordance with the Greek customs of enagismi and necrodipna, the funerary meals. Among others, a rectangular basin with a small spout would have served as an offering table and for libations, and next to that, another circular top of a stone table was discovered. So in Palaepaphos, we are in the presence for the first time in the Paphos area of a cemetery of Greek type. The structures we mentioned before were possibly located inside funerary perivoli following the Greek custom attested all over ancient Greece. The funerary monument of Palaepaphos is an imposing monumental above-ground structure presenting good quality architecture, but precisely what is supported remains unknown. Above-ground funerary monuments of the same period and of similar construction consisting of hewn stones filled on inside with earth and rubble are known about in many parts of Greece, especially in the cemeteries of northern Greece, in Pella, in Vergina, also in Strymia, Abdera, in Thrace, as well, of course, Keramikos, in Athens, in the Peloponnese, and elsewhere. Many of them are in relations to burial perivoli, as well as freestanding. It is not possible at this moment to enter into details and comparisons, but it's clear that we are in the presence of funerary architecture and practices echoing contemporary Greek creations. The second structure we discovered is lower. I mean, the lower one, yes, and may again have supported a monument, or the stones uncovered may have formed a platform, a low crepidoma, where the ceremonies would have taken place. Such low platforms are known again from Greek cemeteries situated above ground and close to tombs. Around the platform, vases and other utensils necessary to the ceremonies often came to light, also in the case of Palaepaphos. Small platforms supporting stele or serving as offering tables are often depicted in Greek pottery. Several big or small platforms have been discovered the last years in ancient Marion, in Cyprus again, in Polis της Χρυσοπούς, in the Ambeli to Englezu necropolis, as you can see in this aerial photo. These are the platforms from a closer view at Ambeli to Englezu, and the second necropolis of Ortakylades, where the Greek customs are again attested. This, I can say that it's a little earlier, are not of the beginning of Hellenistic period. I believe that it's in the late 5th, 4th century. But it's a question, the chronology of these structures. It is especially worth mentioning the uncovered painted stele. They become widespread in the Hellenistic period, and until now in Cyprus were solely confined to Amathos. A painted stele is also attested to in Marion and now in Palaepaphos. Painted stele point toward northern Greece for their source of inspiration, and they may possibly represent the presence of people originating from these areas arriving on the island after the Macedonian conquest. Other finds corroborate this argument, such as the first cremation found in Palaepaphos in the same necropolis, Cremation of the dead is a common practice in Macedonian culture. In Cyprus, the custom of cremation was practiced in the geometric period, and it reappears in the early Hellenistic period, most probably under Macedonian influence. It is not possible at this time to trace precise parallels, but the finds definitely point to a population with Greek background, practicing Greek burial customs, and most probably having Macedonian roots. A taste for Macedonian culture is also reflected in some types of vessels and their decoration. I refer to the new form of amphora attested to in the early Hellenistic period, known as Macedonian Amphora. Several specimens come from the Paphos area. Typologically, they are closer to the forms found among Macedonian amphora excavated at Thessaly, especially in the south part in the Lamia cemetery, as well as Boeotia. An interesting specimen was uncovered at the Phones, which you see here, the Phones necropolis. The form is parallel to forms from Olynthos, but there is dated in the 5th century, but similar forms are also attested to later on in several places, such as in Neani, Macedonia, Larissa, Veria, and they are dated in the 3rd and 2nd century BC. The Phones amphora, the Phones example, was discovered with globular amboiteria of the early 3rd, late 4th century BC. The white ground amphora is also a first-time discovery in Palaepaphos. The vase contained the burnt bones of 2 persons, a small child and a youth. And I particularly thank Grigoria Ioannou, who's actually in the Paphos Museum and has studied these bones. The surface of the amphora is covered with a fine white layer upon which a polychrome decoration has been applied, which now has partly vanished. The painted decoration consists of 2 ribbons bound on the handles with the ends floating. Between them, branches of green leaves, possibly myrtle, are painted, forming a kind of wreath. White ground vessels are not unknown in Cyprus, especially in Marion in the 4th century BC, but their presence in Palaepaphos is recorded for the first time. Vegetal wreaths and ribbons are observed on funerary vases in various regions of the ancient world in the early Hellenistic period, such as Macedonia, of course, Alexandria, Rhodes, from where our vase takes its inspiration. This category of pottery has strong ties with polychrome pottery of the early Hellenistic period in Greece, especially Macedonia, but has not been studied in depth in Cyprus. The built monuments, together with the stele and other installations, are the most comprehensible signs inside the necropolis along the road crossing the cemetery, providing access to the city, as in the case in most of the Greek cities. Luxury funerary monuments of various kinds, naiski, painted stele, are incorporated into the everyday social life of the city. Funerary monuments inside the necropolis are inexistent prior to this in Palaepaphos. They reflect a radical change in the organization of the burial ground, which possibly reflects a new building program in the city in the early Hellenistic period, something which the new find in the center of Kouklia may signify. The finds in the necropolis may also pinpoint the tendency of a new upper class to impose its presence in the funerary environment of the city and in everyday life. At this point, I would like to say that the landscape of Palaepaphos from the early Hellenistic period is also dominated by the tumulus of Laona. That impressive monument is under excavation by the University of Cyprus, and still we ignore the reasons of its creation. However, funerary tumuli are related to Macedonian burial practices and are already known in Salamis and Amathos. The date...
3 minutes. 3 minutes left.
I'm finishing. The date for the erection of this monument given by the excavators is very late 4th, 3rd century again. So we are in the same chronological period. The erection of a funerary, luxury funerary monument is not an isolated phenomenon in Palaepaphos at this time. I refer to these monumental funerary structures in Marion, which are maybe earlier, but we have also the monuments discovered in Amathus outside the eastern gate of the city, for which I do not have any further information or chronology. The monuments are generally, the funerary monuments are generally erected close to the gates along the roads leading to other cities as part of a ceremonial landscape and send various messages. The abandonment of the old necropolis in the early Hellenistic periods in Palaepaphos and the concentration of funerary monuments at Phones, Alonia, together with the evidence of Greek burial customs, mark a turning point in the city's topography, also signifying a change of character at the beginning of the new era. It is not a sign of an abandonment. The same area continues to be used as the main cemetery of Palaepaphos, as the area houses most of the Hellenistic and Roman tombs from Palaepaphos. It also seems that it was a privileged burial ground of the upper classes. The discovery and excavation of a ruined built tomb close to the built monuments we mentioned before corroborates this. The tomb construction in the friable, the tomb was unfortunately found collapsed and badly damaged due to its constructions in the friable rock of the area. The walls built of hewn blocks have been partially preserved up to a height of 1 meter, 1.5 meter, testifying to an expensive form of architecture financed by people belonging to wealthy social class. Material from the tomb can be dated to the 3rd and 2nd century BC, like this complete koan amphora of the 2nd century BC, with both handles stamped, which is very rare, I think. In the surrounding area, many tombs of typical Hellenistic funerary architecture bear witness to the existence of traditions in common with other sites of the island of the same period, and they yielded Rhodian stamped amphora, mostly dated from the 3rd to 1st century. The discovery of numerous commercial amphora is a testament to the widespread economic and commercial activity during the Hellenistic period. Hellenistic tombs with Rhodian amphora are also found in other necropolis such as Catalonia, Scales, Plakes, you see here, Xylinos and everywhere, and it sounds strange for people who know Aleppophos. Plakes is linked to geometric symmetries, and here we have a big Hellenistic tombs. This is also. The city seems to have enjoyed, and also the complete amphora from Xylinos. The Xylinos is known as early geometric.
Well, Efstathios, you have to finish very soon, very quickly.
I'm finishing one phrase. The city seems to have enjoyed significant development and an increase in economic activities as well as demographic increase. The main Hellenistic necropolis seems to have been at Phones, Alonia, but the ancient necropolis situated at a distance from the city are reused, something that suggests significant human presence and activity all over the area of the ancient capital from Plakes to Scales. And final, as I said at the beginning, I was not intending to give answers to major research issues, but to provide current research with new information in order to see Hellenistic Palaepaphos from a different perspective. Thank you very much.